Previously on I Couldn't Walk Away, Episode 3, Voice in the Dark. While Do-hyun's body lay motionless in the ICU, his world wasn't silent. In the darkness, he drifted between his stepmother's poisonous sweetness and a new voice, warm, stubborn, and foreign, that talked about taxis, neon lights, and a God who wasn't done with him yet. Joyce Ivory Cole kept coming back to his bedside, missing opportunities and ignoring good sense, telling herself, one more visit, then I'll walk away, even as something in her refused to let go. Deep in that dark, another presence pulsed one word through him. Stay. His index finger twitched, his brain activity spiked, and Nurse Han saw it first. They called it reflex, nothing certain. But Joyce stared through the glass, heart pounding, and knew he heard me. Hand on the door, she almost left. Instead, Joyce stepped back into the room, and the darkness around Kang Do-hyun was no longer completely in control. Welcome to Episode 4, When the Air Wakes Up. He came back to the world on a breath that hurt. Air scraped down his throat like he hadn't used it in years. His chest burned. His eyelids were made of stone. For a long moment he stayed still, unsure if this was another memory, another half-dream where he'd hover above scenes from his own life and be unable to change anything. Then a sound cut through the fog, beeping. Slow, steady, monitors. The smell of antiseptic followed, sharp and clean, sheets under his fingers, weight on his chest that felt like a blanket. Hospital, his mind supplied. He forced his eyes open. The ceiling came first. White tiles, fluorescent fixtures humming softly, then the blurry edges of a room. Pale walls, a window with blinds half drawn, machines at his side blinking green and blue. He turned his head, just a little, and pain flared at his temple. A bandage tugged against his skin. Easy, Director Kang, a voice said. Male, calm, professional. Don't move too quickly. He frowned. The word director felt distant, like a title someone else wore. A face leaned into view. The doctor he vaguely remembered from the darkness. Round glasses, tired eyes, a stubborn set to his jaw. Can you hear me? The doctor asked. If you understand, blink twice. Do-hyun stared at him, then blinked. Once, twice. The doctor exhaled, relief loosening his shoulders. It's a miracle, he murmured, half to himself. Director Kang, you were in a coma. Do you know your name? He opened his mouth. The first attempt was dry air. He swallowed, tongue thick. Kang, Do-hyun, he managed. His voice sounded like it belonged to someone who'd swallowed gravel. And the year? He answered, slowly, but correctly. The doctor nodded, eyes shining in a way that made him think the man might actually care beyond the medical chart. I'll call your family, he said. We're going to run some tests, but this... He shook his head, smiling now. This is good. Very good. The word family made something cold crawl up the back of his neck. He dragged his eyes away from the doctor, scanning the room. Empty except for them. He hadn't expected that. He hadn't expected disappointment. Where is she? He croaked. The doctor paused at the foot of the bed. The nurse, he guessed. I can... Not the nurse. Frustration lent him a flicker of strength. The woman. The one who... He groped for words. How did you describe a presence in the dark? She talks too much, he rasped. About coffee and street food and God. The doctor stared at him like he'd started speaking another language. Ah, he said slowly. You mean your girlfriend? He blinked. My what? The foreign woman, the doctor explained. She was with you at the bridge and came with you in the ambulance. She's been visiting. Often. Girlfriend? The word didn't fit in his mouth any more than director did, but the doctor's description landed like a key in the right lock. Foreign. Woman. Voice like warmth in winter. How long? He swallowed again. How long was I in the coma? The doctor considered 21 days. 21 days. The days in the dark folded over each other in his mind, compressing into something heavy and shapeless. She talked to me, he said, more to himself than the doctor. In there. In? The doctor smiled gently, the way people did when humoring patients. Yes, sometimes the brain can incorporate familiar voices into dreams. It is a good sign that you remember. The door opened before he could press further. Jihoon stepped in first, breathless as if he'd run the length of the hospital. His hair was messier than usual, tie askew. His eyes, always sharp, were wide with something that looked suspiciously like hope. Hyung, he breathed. The word cut through everything else. Do-hyun turned his head, slower this time, anticipating the pain. It still hurt, but seeing Jihoon's face anchored him in a way nothing else here had. Still here? He rasped. A laugh burst out of Jihoon, half hysterical, half relieved. He crossed the room in 3 strides and clutched the bed rail as if he might shake it, then thought better of it and just gripped until his knuckles whitened. You idiot, he said, voice breaking. You absolute. He cut himself off, swallowing hard. You scared the hell out of me. I scared myself, Do-hyun muttered. The door opened wider. Madame Kang swept in on heels that clicked softly against the floor, followed by 2 aides in muted suits. She wore pale gray this time, her makeup understated, her expression carefully composed between anguish and strength. My son, she breathed. She came to the opposite side of the bed, reaching for his face with gloved hands that trembled just enough to look genuine. You came back, she whispered. Do-hyuna, you came back to me. He tolerated the touch. Barely. There had been a time when that tremor would have moved him, when he would have believed it was for him. Now, flashes of signed papers, overheard words, and cups of bitter tea flickered behind his eyes. How are you feeling? She asked, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. Are you in pain? The doctor says it is a miracle. They say it might be difficult after, that there could be side effects, but we will get you the best care. I have already spoken to... Where is she? He interrupted. Her hands stilled. Who? She asked, voice still soft. He searched her face. There was nothing there but practiced concern. The woman, he said. She was here, before, in the room. She talked. Madame Kang's eyes flicked briefly to the doctor, then to Jihoon. The foreigner, she said, a hint of disdain sharpening the last word. It vanished almost instantly, smoothed over by a sympathetic smile. The girl who found you. The hospital staff said she stayed nearby. I thought it was just shock. Jihoon's gaze sharpened. She was here every day, he said quietly. Sometimes twice. Do-hyun's pulse picked up. The monitor tattled on him with a faster beep. Where is she? He demanded, ignoring the way his throat threatened to close again. I don't know, Madame Kang said. The police took her statement. The hospital had her number for forms, but she is not family. The emphasis on the last word was tiny but precise. They can't give out information about her without consent. She gave him an indulgent smile. You should focus on your recovery, not on strangers who stumbled into our lives for a moment. Strangers. The dark surged at the edges of his vision. He remembered her hand on his, the weight of it more real than any of the drugs they'd poured into him. Not a stranger. The doctor cleared his throat. We should let him rest. he said. Director Kang, we will run neurological tests this afternoon. For now, please conserve your energy. Conserve your energy. He'd been conserving his energy his whole life, it seemed. For what? His father's voice surfaced again. Faint. There is strength in you. He looked at Jihoon. Find her, he said. Jihoon blinked. Hyung. I need to see her, he insisted. I need to say something. He wasn't sure what. Thank you felt too small. Sorry felt irrelevant. But he knew with the same certainty that he knew his own name now. He could not move forward without closing the loop that voice had kept open in the dark. Jihoon held his gaze for a moment, then nodded once. Rest, he said. I'll see what I can do. Madame Kang's lips thinned. This is unnecessary, she said. You are confused. Brain injuries can create strange attachments. It's better if... Mother, he cut in, the word tasting strange in his mouth. Please. The please cost him. He saw it land. For a second, he thought she might push, that she might insist in that infuriatingly gentle way that she knew what was best. Then she smiled. Of course, she said. If that is what you want, we will ask. But no promises, People like that, they come and go. She patted his cheek and withdrew her hand. Get some sleep, she murmured, turning toward the door. We will talk later about your responsibilities. For now, I will inform the board that you are awake. They will be relieved to know their director still breathes. The way she said it made it sound like a minor inconvenience rather than a miracle. She left. The room felt bigger without her, but also colder. Dohun let his head sink back into the pillow. The effort of staying awake weighed on him heavily now that the initial surge of adrenaline had faded. He closed his eyes, not to drift back into the dark, but to gather his scattered thoughts. When the world blurred again, it wasn't in the same way as before. This time, when he closed his eyes, he saw her more clearly. Not her face. That remained frustratingly undefined, but the curve of her hand when she gestured, the cadence of her words when she complained about currency conversions, the way her voice softened when she said God's name like it belonged to someone she actually knew. The dark tried to drag him under again. He held on to the voice like a lifeline. Jihoon didn't believe in things easily. He believed in spreadsheets, contracts, and the quiet power of a well-timed leak. He believed in loyalty because he'd had it tested more than once. He believed in the sharp line between those who held power and those who were crushed by it. But watching his friend claw his way back from the edge, waking 21 days after flatlining, remembering his name, asking for the woman whose visits triggered tiny spikes on graphs, challenged even his fixed categories. You're really going to look for her? The nurse asked as he stood at the nurse's station, thumb hovering over the security office number. It's what he asked for, Jihoon said, and my job is to give him what he needs, whether he wants it or not. Nurse Han smiled, understanding the crooked logic of men like them. She was good for him, she said quietly. Sometimes he seemed calmer when she was here, less gone. He remembered the hollow weeks after Chairman Kang's death, when Dohun had drifted through corridors like a ghost in an expensive suit. I need her full name, he said. Joyce Ivory Cole, Nurse Han replied promptly. From the United States. She wrote it on the forms. Ivory, he repeated in his head. A strange, soft name for a woman stubborn enough to bully life back into a dying air. He went to the security office, flashed his credentials, and requested access to the ICU hallway recordings for the 21 days. This might take some time, the guard warned, tapping away at the computer. I have time, Jihoon said. My boss is unconscious. That is a joke, right? the guard asked nervously. Jihoon didn't answer. They found her on the third day's footage. A woman in jeans and a cardigan, hair tucked into a head wrap, back pressed to the wall as she took a shaky breath before entering the room. Later, the same woman slid into the chair by the bed, pulled a book from her bag, and began to talk, hands moving as if she couldn't speak without them. "Can you zoom?" Jihoon asked, leaning in. The image sharpened just enough to catch glimpses of her face when she glanced toward the door. Dark eyes, a tired smile, the kind of beauty that didn't know it was being observed and therefore didn't perform. He memorized the shape of her. "Do you want to pull stills?" the guard asked. "I can print." "No," Jihoon said. "Just send me the files." From there, it wasn't hard. Chaebol gossip traveled faster than viruses. Nurses talked. Orderlies whispered. The black foreign girlfriend who visited every day was the kind of detail that stuck. "She always came from the subway," one orderly said. "Sometimes she stayed on the phone outside, like she was arguing with someone. Then she would sigh and come in anyway." "She brought a small speaker," another added. "I liked the music, better than the TV news." "She cried once," Nurse Park said quietly. "We pretended not to see." By the time Jihoon left the hospital for the first time in days, he had her full name, the agency that had emailed her, and the hostel she'd listed on the admission form in case of emergency. He also had a request burning a hole in his mind. Find her. He looked at his phone, thumb hovering over the agency's number. "I should be arranging neurologists," he muttered to himself, "not playing Cupid." Then he thought of the way Dohun had said she, as if the pronoun was the only solid thing in a world he no longer trusted. He dialed the number. Joyce was halfway through a bowl of instant ramen that tasted vaguely like salt and regret when her phone buzzed. She glanced at the caller ID and blinked. Unknown number. "Hello," she said carefully. Chopsticks paused midair. "Is this Miss Cole?" The voice on the other end was male, smooth, and cautious. "Yes," she said slowly. "Who's asking?" "This is Choi Ji-hoon," he said, "Chief Operating Officer of Kang Group." Her stomach flipped. "Oh, we met technically," he added, "in the hospital corridor. You were leaving his room?" "Right?" The suspicious guy with the sharp eyes. "How can I help you, Mr. Choi?" she asked, trying to sound like someone who frequently took calls from Korean executives at lunchtime. "I wanted to let you know that Director Kang has regained consciousness," Jihoon said. "He woke up this morning." Joyce froze. Everything in the cramped hostel kitchen blurred. "He's awake," she said. "Yes." Air rushed into her lungs so fast it made her dizzy. God answered, she thought, stunned. "That's..." She cleared her throat. "That's good. That's really good." "He also asked for you," Jihoon said. Her mind stuttered. "What?" "He remembered someone talking to him in the Coma," he explained. "He described a foreign woman with a soft but stubborn voice who talks too much about coffee and God." Joyce closed her eyes. "Of course he did. He believes," Jihoon continued carefully, "that you helped him wake up." "That's ridiculous," she blurted. "It was God, the doctors, the machines, and whatever they did when they yelled, 'Clear.'" "I agree," Jihoon said, "but it is not my opinion that matters. He wants to see you." Guilt surged first. She should go, at least once, to prove he wasn't mistaken, to show him she wasn't a figment of his injured brain. Right behind guilt came exhaustion. She thought about the nights in the ICU chair, the mornings running to interviews with swelling under her eyes, the way her chest had ached with every beep of the monitor. She thought about the email she'd received an hour ago from Hanul Creative Agency. "We are delighted to offer you the position of Junior Art Director." Her hands had shaken as she'd read it. A door. A real door. with a salary and a visa sponsor and a chance to build something that wasn't always about someone else's survival. She had prayed for that for years, and now both answered prayers were colliding. "He's awake," she said aloud, more to herself than to Jihoon. God answered. "I'm done." "Miss Cole?" Jihoon asked. She realized belatedly that she'd spoken in English. "Sorry," she said quickly. "Listen, I'm happy he's okay, really, but I don't know him. I'm not family. My part in this—" She gestured helplessly, even though he couldn't see her. "It's over." "He believes otherwise," Jihoon said. He was very insistent. "I can't." She looked around the tiny kitchen, at her open laptop with the job offer email still glowing, at the sticky note where she'd scribbled rent numbers and grocery budgets. "I can't keep living at a hospital. I came here to build a life, not—" She trailed off. "Not to become a walking answer to a stranger's pain. Not again." "I understand," Jihoon said. "It is not my intention to pressure you. I just—" A nurse's voice cut in faintly on his end. "Director Choi, we need your signature." "I have to go," he said. "If you change your mind, you know where we are." He hung up before she could reply. Joyce stared at her phone. Then, deliberately, she set it face down and walked back to her laptop. She clicked the email. "Dear Hanul Creative, thank you for this opportunity." Her fingers moved on autopilot, typing acceptance, gratitude, and professional excitement. "You did what you were supposed to," she told herself. "You pulled him off the rail. You stayed while no one else did. You didn't leave until God moved. You're allowed to step back now." She hit send. For the first time since landing in Seoul, she let herself imagine a future that wasn't defined by ICU beeping. An office with big windows, color palettes and campaign boards, maybe a few coworkers who didn't think missionary every time she mentioned God. "He's awake," she whispered. "That's all I asked." She made herself a promise as she closed the laptop. No more hospital. Promises, she would later decide, had a way of being tested immediately. 3 days later, the rush at Hanul Creative looked like a controlled stampede. Interns hustled to and from printers. Designers slid mock-ups across desks with the desperation of people chasing deadlines and validation. The lobby's minimalist aesthetic, white walls, pale wood, subtle plants, did its best to project calm, but the energy crackled beneath the surface. Joyce stood by the reception counter clutching a folder of documents. The HR representative had asked her to bring her passport and some forms for final onboarding. She'd come straight from an overpriced stationery store, the smell of new notebooks still clinging to her clothes. "You'll get used to the chaos," the receptionist said kindly, scanning the copies. "Mondays are always intense." Joyce smiled. "I've met Korean traffic. This feels familiar." The glass door slid open behind her with a soft whoosh. She didn't turn immediately. There was no reason to. People came and went constantly. Then a whisper rippled through the space, a subtle shift in the air. "Is that? Wait, isn't he? Director King?" The receptionist's eyes widened as she looked past Joyce's shoulder. Joyce frowned and turned. A man stood in the doorway, framed by the polished glass and the setting sun. He wore a coat over a pair of sweatpants and a Henley shirt that didn't quite fit his frame. He leaned slightly on a cane, but there was something in the set of his shoulders that made the cane look more like a formality than a crutch. His hair was unstyled, falling over his forehead in a way that made the bandage at his temple more obvious, not less. His skin was still pale from confinement, but there was color returning to his lips. His eyes scanned the lobby as if he were searching for a specific line in a sea of text. When they found her, they stopped. Joyce forgot how to breathe. It was one thing to see him unconscious, swathed in tubes and wires. It was another to see him standing, alive, real. Kang Do-hyun, the man from the rail, the man from her prayers, the man whose heart had stopped on the other side of a glass wall while she watched. He took a few steps forward. Jihoon hovered behind him, clearly torn between letting him walk on his own and snatching the cane away to support him properly. "Director, slow down," Jihoon murmured. "The doctor said—" "Later," Do-hyun said, without looking back. The receptionist fumbled with her papers. "Director Kang," she said, bowing so deeply her ponytail nearly fell forward. "We weren't informed. Do you need a private meeting room? I can—" He barely heard her. His focus was locked on the woman by the counter. Up close, she looked almost exactly as she had in the recordings, and nothing like them. The camera hadn't caught the precise shade of her skin, the way the light deepened it into warm bronze. It hadn't caught the tiny scar near her left eyebrow or the faint smudge of ink on her fingers. Her hair was pulled back, curls escaping around her temples. She wore a simple top and slacks, but she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd had to rebuild their life more than once. He stopped a few feet away. "Joyce Ivory Cole," he said. She blinked. You know my full government name?" "Nurse Han has a big mouth," Jihoon muttered. Do-hyun's lips twitched briefly, the ghost of a smile. Then he sobered. "You were not at the hospital," he said. "They told me you hadn't come." "I have a job now," she said, sharper than she meant to. "And you have a life. We both have things to do." The receptionist looked between them, eyes wide, smelling drama. She began subtly waving away interns who were pretending they needed something from the lobby. "Do you two want to take this outside?" she suggested gently. They ended up under the awning just outside the building, the automatic doors sliding shut behind them. The sky was a flat, heavy gray. The air smelled like rain waiting for permission. People hurried past on the sidewalk, umbrellas in hand, heads down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He expected her to cry. That's what people did around him, especially now. They either cried or tiptoed, careful not to upset the fragile air. He expected gratitude, awe, maybe, the kind of soft, trembling thanks that made him uncomfortable, but were easy to manage. A polite nod, a distant smile, a gentle assurance that he was fine. Instead, Joyce folded her arms. "You nearly threw away your life," she said. Her eyes were sharp, clear, nothing like the watery gazes he was used to. "Do you know how selfish that is?" He blinked. No one had spoken to him like that since ever. He faltered, unused to having to explain his own despair. "You don't know what I've lost." It came out smaller than he intended, less dignified, younger. She didn't flinch. "And you don't know what you still have," she fired back. "Breath. A body that works and a mind that can fight. Lots of people would give anything to wake up one more day. And you just tried to clock out early." The rain began in a tentative drizzle, tapping gently against the awning above them. A few stray drops blew in sideways, cool against his cheek. He stared at her. In his world, pain and power were private currencies. You didn't spend them in front of others. You didn't accuse someone like him of selfishness. Not to his face. "Do you know what they have planned for me?" he asked quietly. "The board, my stepmother, they smile and say rest, while they strip me of everything my father meant for me to have. They called it love." "That's horrific," she said. No argument, no minimizing. She let the weight of it sit between them for a moment. Then, "But it doesn't make what you did any less selfish." His jaw tightened. "You think I wanted to be born into this?" "You think any of us chose our mess?" she shot back. "I didn't choose to get cheated on and left with debt. I didn't choose to feel like the last single black girl in my circle while everyone else posted their couple pictures. I didn't choose to be pushing 30 and starting over in a country where I can't even read half the signs without an app. Her voice rose slightly, then leveled out again. But I'm here, she said, breathing, trying, one day at a time. You climbed a rail and tried to make the whole world's decision for them. That's not noble. That's selfish. The words sank in deep, hitting places he hadn't allowed anyone to touch. His vision blurred for a second, not from pain or medication, but from something older. Fear, shame, the bone-deep belief that he was a burden. His voice dropped, almost childlike. Why do you care? It wasn't a challenge. It was an honest question. He could understand the initial intervention. There were laws, obligations, human instinct, but the visiting, the stories, the prayers he half remembered, the way she'd held his hand when she thought he couldn't feel it. Why? Her shoulders softened. Just a fraction. Because God does, she said quietly, and for some reason, he wouldn't let me walk away from you. Something in his chest twisted. He'd heard God's name used before. In boardrooms, it had been a convenient slogan slapped on charity campaigns. In his mother's mouth, it had been an accusation. Why would God give me a broken child? In another place, it sounded like a distant relative no one really expected to show up. From Joyce the word, our God sounded personal, like someone she had actually spoken to about him. The drizzle thickened into proper rain, a soft curtain around the edges of the awning. People on the sidewalk popped open umbrellas and hurried past, giving the strange trio, hospital air, black foreign woman, tense Korean COO, a wide berth. He realized he was shaking, not from weakness, from something like gratitude and terror tangled together. Everyone keeps calling it a miracle, he said, voice rough. The doctors, the nurses, even the board, when they think it makes good optics. But in the dark, all I heard was your voice, talking about coffee and kimchi and God. I thought I'd invented you to keep me from going insane. You didn't, she said. I'm very real, unfortunately. He almost smiled. He had never met anyone like her. Most people around him either wanted something or were paid to pretend they didn't. She seemed to want nothing but the freedom to speak her mind, even when it made him flinch. She shifted her weight, glancing back at the glass doors, at the receptionist pretending not to watch them. I need to go back in, she said. I just accepted this job. I can't lose it before my first official day. Panic flared. She was right. She had a life to build that had nothing to do with his. But the thought of her disappearing from his orbit now, after everything, felt worse than the bridge. He stepped forward, the cane digging into the concrete as he did. The movement cost him. His hospital soft muscles trembled. He didn't care. Then don't walk away now, he said. Every word weighted. Help me live. The rain beat steadily against the awning. Joyce looked up at him, truly looked, as if measuring the man in front of her against the broken figure on the bridge and the silent body in the bed. Behind him, Jiune watched, understanding dawning in his eyes. Inside, somewhere beyond the lobby and a maze of corridors, Madame Kang signed another document she believed would bind his future to her will. Out here, under a patch of shelter in a foreign sky, Kang Do-hyun waited for an answer from the only person who had dragged him back from the edge, and then dared to call him selfish for standing on it. Her lips parted. The world held its breath. If you're ready to see what happens next, make sure you're subscribed and your notifications are on